The clock is now running on the Playbook podcast, the podcast where you take a deeper dive into the game of business, leadership, teamwork, character, the things that drive your motivation and build dedication. When you get a good look at the game plan of great business leaders, you start to formulate your own playbook and your own rise to the top. Make your next play your best play. And now, here are today's game captains, Glenn Amarell and Andy Phillips. Let's go!
Welcome back to the Playbook podcast. I'm Andy Phillips. Joining me, as always, is Glenn Amarell. Glenn, how we doing?
2 notches above perfect.
There you go. That's better than me. All right. So, and I thought I was doing well, but here we go. So we have a great guest today. And before we bring her in, as always, let's get some pregame warm-ups going. So Glenn, do you got a question for me?
Yeah, I do. Since we have Nicole on today, I wanted to ask you a question about the most influential woman in your life. But then I thought about it. You have a mother, you have a wife. So we're going to take that outside of your inner circle so you don't get in any trouble. So
I appreciate that.
No problem. Who's the most influential woman in your life?
So I actually got to be honest on this one. It's somebody who I just met recent through you. Rhonda Sciarantino. And for those of you that don't know about Rhonda, go listen to the podcast that we have with her. While we're filming yours, Nicole, it's not up yet, but it will be up by the time this episode's released. So it'll make sense. I'm not gonna say too much about Rhonda because I do want people to obviously listen, but it's not as much the business side as it is what she's overcame in her life. Is so much. There's so much adversity that most people would crumble and use that as an excuse for why things might not work out in your life. She used it as fuel to get to the peak of her life is right now. So she honestly, when they talk about inspirational, it's hard to top that outside of my, inner circle with family. So Glenn, my question for you,
all right,
is you've been in the workforce for roughly 35 years, we'll say. You've had a lot of different jobs. Your resume is large. I want you just to talk about real quick how over the 35 years to get to this point, how women are finally empowered and equals and getting to that point that they should have been all along. There was standards and unwritten rules that should have never been in place. So how nice is it to see from when you started in the workforce 35 years ago to where you are now that we're finally getting to the point where people are just removing that label and understanding that everyone is in the same playing field, and it can probably still get even better, but at least we're trending.
We're trending, and yes, I've seen a lot in my career. The way I was brought up, I was colorblind. Women, no matter what race you were in the workplace, I expected you to get paid the same. It didn't even dawn on me that women were actually doing the same job as men and getting paid less. That, to me, that's crazy. But when you say, we've gotten to a point, but we need to keep going because I still see it every day where somebody will talk to me about a certain thing in a certain way, and they'll talk differently to a female colleague. And it's like, why don't they talk to me that way? It is different, and it's something that may be more subtle and people don't notice, but it still needs to be worked on. So we've come a long way, and we're going to keep on going, right?
That's right.
So we've got a great guest today. We've got Nicole Stephenson, who's the director of the Society of Professional Women, which is a program of the Mainline Chamber of Commerce. She has excelled at her role of developing, marketing, and growing the Society of Professional Women's, their programming and membership. So I'd like to introduce Nicole. Nicole, how are you today?
Hi, guys. Good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on.
We're excited to have you.
That's great. Well, Nicole, as we tell everybody, the first half is kind of business-related questions, and then we're going to have a halftime, kind of get to know you a little more relaxed, and then we're going to kick into the second half with leadership questions. So I'm going to start out with the first question. In your tenure with the Society of Professional Women, you have attracted some major leaders, from an astronaut to the CEO, Madeline Bell of CHOP, Dawn Zier when she was the CEO of Nutrisystem, some amazing leaders. What's your secret?
I love this question. There is no real secret. It's actually fear that holds people back from asking big top executives to join them. So my first secret is to stop being afraid to ask people for things, because I feel like sometimes we think they're too important, or we might not know how to navigate getting in touch with them. And I'm a big believer in, I think it was Wayne Gretzky that said, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And I know it's been changed a couple different ways and given to different people, but I'm never afraid to ask people for things, not in terms of like selfishness of like, do me a favor, but in terms of finding the right connection. That's the second piece, is using your network. So for me, being connected to other individuals in the businesses, I kind of try to see who knows who. LinkedIn's a great tool for that, but sometimes people are connected and they really don't know the person. And I make sure that I put my goals and ambitions out there. I make sure when I tell people, this is a topic that I want to talk about this year. Does anyone know someone that speaks to this? And then when people say, I know someone, I make sure I go after that. I say, oh, can you make me an introduction? Can you introduce me? And being my marketing background, I'm also a firm believer in, having it come from many different sources, hearing it multiple times before you take action. And so that includes people as well. So for example, one of our recent speakers who are not announced yet, so I won't really go there. I heard them on a podcast with a news anchor that was a former colleague of mine. I had someone that was a client of mine that had a son that worked with this person. And I also had someone on in that company that was a former colleague as well. And I went to all three of those people. And I also lay it all out for people that are making introductions for me. I think sometimes we make the mistake of just being like, hey, can you give me an introduction? And you're not telling them why, what this person's doing. Like when you give people like a paragraph, even a small paragraph, like this is why this person should join me. This is what we're doing. You're feeding them the information. So it's so much easier for them because people are busy. They don't have time to explain what SPW is, why it's important. So like if you give people, this is the introduction I want you to make, even a connection on LinkedIn, like, hey, you should meet this person. This is why. It's so much more of a turnkey, like, yes, I'm going to make this introduction for you, because they don't have to do the work. Like if you're asking people to do right. Like it's not going to happen. So my secret is just making sure that I have all of my information together when I'm asking for these introductions, providing it to them, making it as easy as possible for them to make the introduction to me. And of course, always including what the impact is going to be, because people don't want to do things if they don't feel like they're making a difference most times.
Exactly. It's kind of like what Madeline Bell said, punch out of your weight class. And, Andy and I have adopted that. So absolutely some great advice.
Thank you.
So the Society of Professional Women always highlights nonprofits at their events. Talk to us about how giving back is so important to your mission.
Yes, so that was actually courtesy to our founder and our board that really developed SPW in the very beginning. It is actually a part of our mission statement, was to give back to local nonprofits. And so over the last decade, we've given over $80,000 to local nonprofits just as a part of our mission. Wow. And the other really great idea was, I think it started really with having a women's nonprofit that benefited women in the workplace that aligned with the topic for the day. And what happened and what started to formulate was that when we featured this nonprofit, not only were they sharing the mission with attendees, but they were getting people that wanted to join their board, volunteers. So we also, have people bringing things to the event when we were in person. So like, for example, when we had like a pet shelter, people were bringing in dog treats and supplying things. I remember one of my first events with SPW that I really remember on the employee side. I remember we had Covenant House, which is homeless, in helping homeless individuals. And I remember the woman that was featured that was helped by Covenant House had just gotten her first apartment. Our event furnished her entire apartment for free. Wow. Because people were donating their dining room tables or their old, cupboards or whatever. And someone donated a whole dish set. Like it was amazing. So like just one event making an impact like that was incredible. And so we've continued that mission. So, we have sponsors, obviously, that help us. We have a champion sponsor that comes in and donates that $1,000 check piece. But over time, the sponsors always change, but the mission has always remained the same. And that's to give back and to highlight those nonprofits. And through that work, like I said, they've been able to increase their, visibility. They've been able to have volunteers, board members, and the financial donation as well as supplies. And so that's been a really great piece to SPW. And we don't plan on making that go away anytime soon.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, that brings me to my next question. We ask everybody this. It's about COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 has disproportionately affected women in the workplace. How has the SPW, Society of Professional Women, tackled this issue?
Yeah, so that's definitely true. So it has taken, and you talked about this a little bit in the beginning about, how disproportionate it's been for a very long time and how we feel like we've made a lot of strides. So McKinsey and Company does a study every year about women in the workplace in partnership with leanin.org. And when I was writing our newsletter back in October, they had just put out a report that said, since COVID-19, in less than a year, 1 in 4 women were considering downshifting their careers or leaving the workplace. And so that's a pretty significant number in less than a year when you think about how long it's taken to, make strides in the workplace.
Right.
If it's taken us a century to get to where we are and we lose that in 1 year, it is extremely, scary. So I like to position it that SPW has not stopped what we're doing. So we're not doing anything different. We're not increasing either. We're actually just doing what we've always done, which is, working on the knowledge piece and the professional development piece. And what I'd like to say is that our position is whatever businesses do now, whatever they decide today is going to have an impact, not only on business, but on society from now and into the future. So if there are organizations that are not attempting to support women at work or, really make it a priority. So I'm fortunate. I have a business and a company that support and make women a priority in the workplace. If these organizations and companies are not making women a priority, or even any minority group a priority, really, they're really going to feel it. We're all going to feel it in the future. And I have a young daughter we talked about this morning. So for me, it is more than just a job. I have a daughter. I'm sure you have daughters, granddaughters, nieces, nephews, whatever. But this is going to affect our entire future and all that we've worked hard for. So SPW isn't doing anything different because we've always been in this mission. We've been doing this for over a decade. And our mission is to accelerate and expand the influence of women in the workplace, in nonprofit, and in government sectors. I mean, we've seen a huge rise in women taking office in our government, and that's amazing. And we don't really want to stop the momentum now just because of the pandemic. We've seen tons of women doctors and nurses step up and, essential businesses. So there are a lot of women that are taking leadership positions during this time, but many of them feel like they have to take a step back. And that's really going to be devastating to us if we don't do something about that.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
I mean, the pandemic's hit in so many different ways, but that's a huge thing. So,
well, we'll always be a platform for great women.
Absolutely. All right. With this, actually, we're going to move on. We're going to go to halftime, which is always fun. And I tell people all the time, I'm a hypocrite. I'm telling you it's a speed round, but I'm going to definitely ask a follow-up question at some point. So while it's a speed round, here I am slowing it down. So,
okay.
We're going to be as speedy as we want it to be. If you have explanations, we love hearing them. And if you don't, you don't. And we'll just go as it is. But are you ready for the speed round?
I am. And I'm a big talker. So I would prefer to continue thinking in my mind it's a speed round so I don't talk too much.
There you go. There you go. All right. 10 questions. First one. Your favorite musician or band?
Oh, my gosh. Okay, well, I am obsessed with music. If you don't know anything about me, I actually sing for my church. I like all genres of music. I'm actually kind of strange because I could listen to like music, instrumental, and opera and rap in the same hour. So I'm going to say my early influence was Madonna, of course, because she was huge when I was younger. I love Madonna. And my most recent artist is probably Michael Bublé and Lady Gaga. And I say Michael Bublé and Lady Gaga because I don't go to concerts too often. often, and I've seen them both multiple times. And I think
Wow.
Lady Gaga, it's not just her music, it's her performance and her entertainment. Like,
No doubt.
I don't know anyone, like one of her concerts, I just remember going and like even between her sets, which she transforms quite literally in different costumes, sets, like you would think you'd be bored waiting for her to change all this. She has like videos, like short little videos in between every performance to keep you like totally engaged. And her videos are like bizarre, like they're crazy artistic. So like when you go to a Lady Gaga concert, you're seeing art, you're seeing a performance, like her energy is just unbelievable. So I would say that is my favorite artist to see like live would be Lady Gaga.
Awesome.
It's incredible.
Favorite sports team?
Oh, anything Philadelphia. Eagles, Phillies, Flyers. I'm really not a huge basketball fan, probably because I was a basketball cheerleader for like 13 years. But the Sixers, sure, I'll root for them if they're in the play. But anything Philadelphia, I was born and raised in Philadelphia. So that's hands down, anything Philadelphia.
Favorite athlete? I'm assuming from Philadelphia.
Oh my gosh. I have to say Chris Long really, and the whole team.
Such a good guy.
From the Super Bowl year,
Yeah,
honestly.
right.
Like they won at the ESPYs for a reason. Like their philanthropic drive and give back and just their wholeness and genuineness towards each other as a teammate. That whole team that year that they won the Super Bowl was unbelievable. Like, but Chris Long, I mean, donating your salary to make a real difference, and not just in Philadelphia. Like he donated, I think, to 2 or 3 cities actually.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Like that's like we were talking about when I say SPW is more than just a job and a check to me. It's a purpose. Like to have someone that's so influential step aside and realize that they can make such a difference and like just play for the love of the game. Because I always said, like, I wish I got paid $1 million to do what I love.
Right.
Like, what are they complaining about? You know, like I have such respect for Chris Long and what he did, because then other players kind of followed suit of that. So I feel like he really had a chance to make a statement, and others are doing much more because of him. So yeah.
His Water Boys organization that he helps run is pretty incredible too. All right.
Did you get any of the Eagles from that team for Big Brothers and Big Sisters?
So yes, I have not gotten any of them. No, that's full credit to BBBS themselves.
Right.
But I am obsessed with going to Fashion Touchdown, and I did get to take a picture with the trophy and met a couple of them, and they're really great. Like I said, they're great guys. Malcolm is really involved with Big Brothers and Sisters. Now BBBS nationally is really involved with the NFL, and I think that's mainly because of our team. The Philadelphia team really stepped up with our Independence region, and that I think really catapulted the relationship with the national organization and the National Football League overall.
Moving on to your death row meal. So basically you're wrongly convicted, or you're taking the heat for somebody else. Very trustworthy, very loyal. What would your death row meal be?
I'm assuming everyone will think it's pasta because I'm Italian, but it's not. It's actually any type of French fry. I actually told my husband a really long time ago when we met, I was like, I would totally make like a French fry cart and just do French fries. And you could just do so much with potatoes. Like, honestly, you could make it like a Mexican flair French fry. You could do the gravy and cheese and do pasta type French fry. You could do taco French fry. I mean, like
do some breakfast
you can even do
fries.
sweet potato French fries and make it like with cinnamon and stuff. I mean, French fries in general can be made into like whole meals and any flavors you want. So
when you think about it, they're really underutilized.
Right. I'm like, I could live off of French fries because you could literally make it a different cuisine every day. Like even Greek fries. Oh my God, with the feta cheese. See, like I'm saying, I can go on for French fries for days.
All right. You get to be at a weekend at a beach house, a lake house, or a house in the mountains. Which one are you choosing?
I'm choosing the lake house because I have a beach house and I go to a friend's house in the mountains pretty frequently to ski. And I feel like a lake house is the best of both worlds because in the summer you can like be on the water and you can enjoy yourself. But then if you have a lake house in the mountains, obviously, well, then you can do the ski thing. So I feel like it's the perfect middle ground of having the best of both worlds.
Totally agree. Do you celebrate Thanksgiving? I want to start with that.
I do.
Okay. What is the one food item you must have? Like you personally have to have?
French fries?
What do you say?
Artichokes.
Artichokes.
Yeah, stuffed artichokes. So like I said, my family's Italian. So we, before all holiday meals, have, pasta, some sort, either raviolis or gnocchis or something Like we always have a pasta before every meal. But my family, for some reason on my dad's side, my grandmother had always made stuffed artichokes and my mom does the same thing. So like, it was like a treat for me when I was little, is that after the soup and salad and then the pasta and then the actual meal, it was weird because the artichokes weren't even served with the meal. It was like served before dessert. So like the artichokes come out and it's like a big deal. And then we have dessert. But yeah, artichokes is my thing.
I love it. So I got to play referee here. We're going to do one more in the speed round. And I think I want to pick this one because I think you're going to have a good answer. Okay. The best movie ever made is what?
I'm struggling with this best movie ever made.
That's why we asked it.
Just like with music. I mean, like there's so many genres. You'd have to ask me which movie is the best movie ever made in a genre. Because another thing, what? Go ahead. Are you going to say something?
I was going to say, it doesn't have to be your favorite movie. It has to be one that you appreciate, the acting, how it's made, the storyline, the thought behind it. I'm talking best. And when we're talking about the best, you got to make decisions. In the sports world, who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James? Which team's better? You got to make decisions, right?
Yeah. See, I love movies that tell like real life stories, like documentaries almost, where like you can learn like a real lesson. But I actually just love series too. Like I like to watch things on repeat. Like, and I'm kind of a nerd in terms of like Lord of the Ring trilogies and Harry Potter trilogies. like I love fantasy too, because I'm imaginative. So I love to like see the difference between the books and on screen. So, I mean, it's so hard. I'm gonna, even the Twilight series, I mean, it's kind of teeny bopper-ish, but I love like series and books and anything made from a book.
I'll make it easy on you then. Pick one series, pick one trilogy, I'll let you do that.
It's gonna be Harry Potter, hands down for me.
Okay. We'll deal with that. That works. I think you could probably debate this all day in your head, and I don't want to put you through that mental stress. I'm like The Green Mile is an amazing movie. I mean, all the actors in that, I'm thinking So my favorite is Rocky, but I think the best made movie is either The Godfather Part 2 or Good Will Hunting. Those would be my best. But all right, we're moving on. Second half, here we come. We're going to get through a few of these questions before we got to wrap it up. You're a great communicator with the ability to connect with others, as we've talked about in the first half. But tell us a little bit about the character traits that helped you mold into a great leader.
Okay. Character traits to make a great leader. So this is actually not one of my greatest traits. It's one that I aspire to have because, like I said, I know I talk a lot. I think being a good listener is important for leadership. But it's not just listening. The other piece is something that I do feel like I have, and that's empathy. I feel like if you can't listen without empathy, then you're not really able to listen properly. And the reason why I feel that is because many people have different circumstances and experiences that really give them their perspective. And sometimes people automatically want to defend why they shouldn't listen to this. Like, oh, well, that's not true. I think we need to remove ourselves from our own personal experiences sometimes and really listen to why people have their reasoning and try to empathize and understand where they're coming from before we can then lead them and give them the direction that we want. It's so interesting because there's so many different people who talk about leadership and I'm not saying they're all wrong or they're all right. It's just so case by case basis that it's hard to say, oh, this person is right. Some people, especially when it comes to generational differences, will talk a lot about the different leadership styles or even management styles or regular employee styles of how they prefer to communicate. Like send me an email versus come into my office versus, and there's a lot of people that say, well, you're the boss, you set the tone. I'm doing it via email and I don't care about what my employees think because I'm the boss. And this is going to be the way we communicate. For me, I'm like, then you're not really going to get the most effective team because if you're not letting them communicate the way that they want to communicate, how are they supposed to do their job? But I can understand where that comes from because as a boss, sometimes you don't have the capacity to have 15 different leadership styles. You can't communicate 15 different ways with 15 different people. Like there needs to be some sort of level playing ground. But I think, like I said, you kind of need to listen and then try to come up with the best scenario. So like I said, I don't really feel like saying you're the boss and it's your way or the highway is wrong, but I think there needs to be some sort of middle ground. So for me, I really feel like to be a good leader, you need to be able to listen, but listen with an open mind and have a little bit more empathy in your leadership style so that you can kind of at least understand where people are coming from before you make your decision of
right.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with the firm hand, but they got to know you care.
Right, exactly. It's like, I don't really know if that's going to be the best way then, because, your person in the corners over there is never going to come into your office and talk to you. And then they might need that for you to give them the next set of instructions.
All right. Well, that brings us to the next question. As a mentor yourself, and I know I look up to you, watching what you've done is just a real inspiration to me. How are you shaping the future leaders?
Thank you. That is so nice of you to say. Sometimes it really is very humbling to hear that I'm making a difference, because that's ultimately what I'm trying to do. Like I said, I've joined the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters. I believe mentorship is very important in molding who people are. I am a first generation college student, at least in my own personal family, because my sister did not go to college and my parents did not go to college. So for me, I didn't really have a lot of guidance in how to navigate the corporate white collar community. And as a young woman, especially a young woman that advanced to a, higher level role very quickly, I needed to rely on mentors within the organization or people that I met along the way that were older than me that could give me some sort of insight, like setting up a 401k. Like I literally had to go to someone and be like, what is this? I don't know. They didn't teach this in college, right? Unless I was in finance, maybe. So for me, like a lot of my experience, my college had only said do one internship. And I thought I needed one to graduate, just check the box. Like I didn't realize how important relationships would be. I graduated in the stock market crash of 2008, as did my husband, and his company that he interned at folded. And so like he had no one to go to for a job. Like you think a lot of these internships sometimes, will become into a career. So as soon as I realized, how hard it was to get a job, and I got a job with who I interned with and how important that was, because trust me, I applied everywhere on every format, Monster Jobs when that was a thing and all those things, Career Builder, and even individual companies. And it is sometimes who just to at least get your application through the door. So I actually go back to universities quite frequently as a guest speaker, just to tell them, please do more opportunities and internships than your class tells you to. That's like my big piece of advice I always say when I go to universities is do more internships. And even if you don't like it, or even and that's another great way for you to see what you don't want to do, even if you do it and you hate it. Because honestly, my internship was in marketing and I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. And now my whole career is in marketing, like you never know where those opportunities are going to lie. So I do go back to universities quite frequently when I'm invited. If I'm invited, I went to my high school once when they asked me to come and talk. I advise my sorority. I don't anymore because I've kind of taken on a few other things, but I used to advise my sorority so that I can give back to those young women. 3 or 4 of them have actually had internships with me, so that they can, get their internship game on, like I said. So I try to mentor when I can. My former colleague, Lucy, who I love to death, she started very young with me as a freshman, and I kind of seen her through her transition into the workplace, hired her with me, and then actually brought her over with me to the Mainline Chamber of Commerce from our previous role together, because I wanted to make sure I was advocating for her. And people have to realize there's a difference between mentorship and sponsorship. I didn't really have anyone advocating for me for sponsorship. What that means is someone in the organization is actually getting you raises and promotions. Like they're actually going to bat for you into the boss's office and saying, you need to put Nicole in a higher role, or you need to give it. So when I have employees that are under me, I fight pretty hard for them on an annual basis to get, increased compensation. And like I said, brought Lucy into another role even before I knew I was leaving too. Like just putting people up is really important to me, and making sure I'm paving the way, because sometimes I feel like, when you bring other people up with you, you're better served, or even putting them ahead of you. And my former supervisor always tells me like, hey, I always said you could be working for the intern one day and now you're a boss. You never know where that relationship will lead, or where those connections are going to serve you well, where maybe someone that you mentored or sponsored is now in a position that can help you. So I always like to do that.
Well, now we are on with time running out here. We're on to our final question.
Okay.
It's our last play of the game. We call it the Hail Mary question. And it's simply go back to 22-year-old Nicole. You have to give her, knowing what you know now, knowing what you've seen, just give her a quick word of advice.
I'm going to tell her not to take things so personally and that you're not as good as you think you are. And I'm going to say that. And I'm going to say that.
Little humble pie.
Well, there's a little bit of a backstory with that. And the reason why I say that is I didn't have the best leader when I was coming up. And the reason why I say that is because it was always a no and there was never any explanation. And it just felt like I was never good enough. And I think I needed to know that I was good enough, but I didn't know everything. You know, you come out of college and you have all these dreams and aspirations, and it's hard not to take things personally when you're given a position and you're like, well, why did you give me the position if you didn't think I was good enough? Oh, so you can underpay me $30,000 now that I've seen the budget? Like literally that happened to me. I assumed role of the budget that I got a job for and realized I was paid $30,000 less than my predecessor. And so how do you do that job without feeling some sort of negative? Like I just felt very taken advantage of. And then things started to just, you know, it just wasn't a good place. And it was kind of interesting because then when I came over to SPW and I learned and I made all these connections, I was like, oh my God, I was so green. I didn't know anything about the world. Like I really wasn't qualified. But the point is, you know, you give someone a chance and you give them a job that they're not qualified for. Usually you give them steps to achieve their goals. You say, you know, you're in this role, you're green, but here are some things you can do to excel, or this is why we didn't pay you the money. Like there was just no real leadership or guidance. And it felt like, oh, I'm just a woman, or I felt like it was ageism really. Cause like I was a 22-year-old director on a board of 6 people and they were all white men over 40. So like being a 21-year-old in the room, like not really making a big impact and just kind of feeling like, oh, maybe it's cause I'm a woman or maybe it's cause I'm young. Not realizing that the young and the experience are more to do with the experience side. Like there was no real guidance there. Like I said, that's why it's so important to have a mentor. Like I didn't know how to play the game yet. And I think I let that get in my way. And now looking in, I'm like, oh my God, why did they, why was I, like, of course I'm a driven individual and I'm smart and I can check boxes, but I really didn't have any relationships of my own yet to like help them make profit and meet people, so to say.
Awesome.
So like, yeah, I would just say that, you know, when you look at being young, a lot of times young people think they have all the answers. That was definitely me. I thought I knew it all. You don't. That's what I would just say, remove the personal digs and really find out what you're missing and learn and then apply it.
Awesome. Well, we're up against it. So now I'm going to give you like 30 seconds, like, you know, it is at the chamber. I don't have a gong, but give us a little promotion of what you do and tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So definitely follow me on LinkedIn at Nicole Stephenson, and it's with a PH, STEPHENSON, because I don't only promote our SPW events, but I also share information regarding women and anything that's going on in the gender field of, you know, good things, bad things, articles, just knowledge and information. So please follow me on LinkedIn. You can also go to spwmainline.com or mlcc.org to find out more about the Chamber and the Society of Professional Women. We host monthly events. Men are welcome. I make sure to say that. We sort of need men to be a part of this conversation, especially because they do dominate the workforce in terms of leadership to help to get these women to advance almost like champions of our cause. So you can learn anything. We may focus on gender in our mission, but we have branched out into professional development content, like I said, and you can learn from Madeline Bell from CHOP, like you said, Glenn, and you can learn from the first female astronaut to hear her experience and her challenges so that you could say, oh, I don't want to have, you know, my niece or my daughter experience those challenges. Just, you know, we've had time management experts, you know, time isn't specific to gender, right? So I would say if you're looking to learn, you can look at all of our events on spwmainline.com.
Absolutely.
And if a speaker resonates with you or a topic resonates with you, please join us. We have networking in all of our events. A lot of companies use this to complement their employee resource groups or their ERGs. So we are here as a resource, like I said, for professional development content and networking. So,
well, that's great. Well, Nicole, I want to thank you for joining us. It was a great episode. Please make sure that everybody comments on our various platforms. My name's Glenn Amaral.
I'm Andy Phillips.
What's in your playbook? Till next time, thank you very much.